Welcome to the Slow X Archery Podcast. I'm Nikki Haverstock, and I am here alone today. Part of the reason why we relaunched the podcast was I wanted to have a kind of place to talk about various sports psych issues and ideas. And so I thought to start that series, I would discuss goal setting, specifically how I taught it for 9 years when I taught at a university. So I taught. They had an activities department. Students were required to take, I think it was 3 activity classes, or maybe it was 4. Um, and we were required to do certain things in class other than just the sport. So of course we learned archery. I was usually the first person to put a bow in their hand, all the way up to scoring. The range wasn't quite big enough for 18 meters, so we did 16 meters, but on a normal 40 centimeter target. And as one of the activities that they did, that it had to be written work, we did goal setting. So I thought I would share with you. If you are on YouTube, you can actually watch me go over the handout. If you're a podcast, obviously you can't, but I will try to explain everything that you're seeing. And in the show notes, I have a link to both of the files that I used, the blank goal setting sheet and the explanation that I gave out. I'm going to try to do it just like I used to when I taught. So it's going to be geared toward a beginning archer, a single practice session, and the example goals are beginner goals. So, take that in mind. At the end, I'm going to kind of stop and maybe add some context for what I've learned in the past 11 years since I taught that way. But let's go ahead and let's get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, first, for those who are on YouTube, I'll show you what. There we go. Let me show you what it looks like. This would be a blank sheet. So at the top, I have goal, and I use SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-based. If you have any experience in business classes, you might have heard of this. A tends to be the letter that you see really different from places to places. I use action-oriented because that's what makes most sense. I've heard other people use different ones, but it's what, in my research, I found to be most effective. And then after the goal you would write at the beginning of the time. And at the end, we do the reflective cycle, which is a really big part of it. So let me go ahead and figure out how to pick. Okay. So what I would do, I'm just going to hop right in like I normally do. So, okay. So, welcome to the goal setting exercise. Do not fill out your goal setting forms yet. I guarantee you, if you fill them out before I explain how to fill them out, you will fill them out incorrectly. Just promise me. I've been teaching this for a while. I know exactly what happens. So, let's first go through what goal setting is. So, the reason why goal setting is recommended for athletes and people in general that are looking to improve behavior is that 90% of studies have shown that goal setting has a consistent and powerful effect on behavior. Studies have shown a correlation between goal setting skill, not just goal setting, but that you're doing it correctly and that you have practiced the skill enough to have it be effective. We see improved performance, lower anxiety, higher confidence, higher self-efficacy, which is sort of like a task-specific self-confidence is what self-efficacy is. So right off the bat, I want to explain the difference between there's outcome goals. This is things like winning, improving scores, that research shows that it is effective for motivation. So when we talk about things like I'm, getting up out of bed, skipping partying late at night, wanting to like win the Olympics, improve your score, that's useful. But when you're actually in competition or practice thinking, I have to hit a 10, I have to hit a 10, I have to win, I have to win, it actually it has a negative effect during competition and practice. Now, process goals, which is the skills necessary to succeed, those are what we find to be most effective in research. There's a middle ground called performance goals. We don't discuss them. I don't discuss them much in this class because of the nature of what the sport is with archery. So if you are a baseball player, an outcome goal might be winning. A performance goal might be improving. I don't know. I don't know baseball stuff. That might be improving your batting average or things like that. And then process goals. So, but in archery, because literally there's not a lot of difference between performance and outcome. We just talk about outcome goals. So outcome goals are scores, avoiding, missing, things like that. We're going to focus here today on process goals. They can be both form goals, like how your attitude is, or form goals, like technique goals, how I'm releasing, things like that, or mental goals, which are how your attitude is. So, a couple of basic rules that we're going to get into. Goals should always be stated in the positive. And that's not like, hey, be positive. It just literally means that your statement is stated in terms of what you will be doing, as opposed to what I am avoiding. So instead of saying don't drop the bow arm, we would change it to hold bow arm steady after the shot. Don't worry, we switch to stay calm. So if you say don't worry, it's like, what does that mean? So just try to, it shouldn't be don't, not, can't, shouldn't, things like that. We're not going to qualify our statements with but, excuse me, but, except, unless. Just allow yourself to enjoy the positives and say things like, I am good at this, or this went well, or this is what is working. You should always have a form and or a mental goal for practice and competition. Goals should be written down and reviewed. That's one of the biggest problems we see with people who do goal setting. If they never review them, we'll find that you're not really, like, you're not finishing the experimentation. You're just setting a goal, you're doing the thing, we have no clue. If you have a long-term goal, then a series of short-term goals will help you reach that long-term goal. So, like, working on your attitude is probably a series of short-term goals, as opposed to just like, I'm going to have the best attitude. And then a reminder that when you meet your goal, you have succeeded. Also, goal setting, I don't know if I say this someplace else, but goal setting is a skill you have to develop. And so it's totally fine if if you don't meet your goal and you like, oh, I made this too difficult. I made this too easy. I didn't do this correctly. Okay. So we'll get into the specifics of how the goal is written. Goals should be SMART. They should be specific. We should have a clearly defined goal, and it should be described in detail. It should be measurable. There should be some way of knowing if you've reached your goal. We oftentimes use percents or on a scale of 1 to 10. And the next page is going to be, is going to give you a sample goal, and we're going to go through and just show what each of these means. So just kind of listen for now and follow along. Action-oriented goals should indicate something that needs to be done. There should be action verbs, as opposed to just somehow magically this thing is going to happen. Goals need to be set just beyond your current comfort zone, so they need to be realistic. And they should be time-based, in that we're not just saying somewhere between now and the end of time we're going to accomplish this. For this particular goal-setting exercise, since we're in a class, we're just going to set the time by the end of the class today. But of course, you can have overlapping goals. You can set a yearly goal, a 6-month goal, a quarterly goal, a daily goal, a weekly goal, that kind of thing. After the time period is over, you need to use the reflective cycle to evaluate and reflect. This is something that is left out for most people. Okay, so this is actually what it's going to look like. So how to do the goal setting exercise. So the first thing we're going to do is pick a process goal, form or mental. Reminder, outcome goals are not for goal setting, but they are included so that everyone can understand the difference. So these are why I include these. And this is why I said, do not touch your goal setting exercise, because I guarantee you, if you did not listen to this, every person in class would write an outcome goal. They would say, I want to hit the middle every time. I want to score a 250. I want to only put them in the gold. I don't want to have any misses. I've done this enough, and I didn't used to warn people that's what happens. And I get it. If I had taken this class and I had not gotten this instruction, I would have done the same thing. So I also want you to encourage that when you think about the goals to pick, try to pick something that will improve your day. Okay. If you don't know, that's a great opportunity to come to me or another instructor or TA and ask them for recommendations. We can totally do that. You don't have to do this part alone, but usually by this point in the class, people have a kind of a clear idea of what they're struggling with. So 2 examples of a form goal would be to keep elbow turned correctly, as opposed to, just so you notice I did not say don't hit elbow. Okay. It's the same wording. It's just being more clear about what it is you want. And the goal is to keep the elbow turned correctly. Another example might be stand up straight as opposed to don't lean back. So those would be two examples, keep an elbow turned correctly or stand up straight, that are good examples of form goals. Okay. A mental goal, some examples would be focus on one shot at a time, focus on only my own arrows. So that's a good one for, I know some people in class get frustrated because everybody's shooting better. So instead of saying, don't worry about what other people are doing, what do you want to do instead? I want to focus on only my own arrows. And another option for a mental goal is stay relaxed and have fun. That is totally fine in this class. Like having a good time. You're out here, you're out in the sun, we're nice and relaxed. Staying relaxed and having fun is a perfectly acceptable goal, and I encourage it. If that's what you're struggling with in this class, let's do that. Okay. Just to compare what the outcome goals would be, we're not using them for this exercise, but just to give a difference would be hit the target every time, hit them in the middle, get a certain score. Just a reminder, we want to make sure our goal is stated in the positive, what it is you want to do. Avoid using don't, won't, can't. Figure out a way to state it in the positive. If you're struggling, come and talk to me. Okay. So once you have your initial goal and you wrote it down, so maybe you wrote keep elbow turned correctly. Okay. Now we're going to take the goal and we're going to just expand it. Make sure it's action oriented and specific. So you're describing what you want and how you're going to accomplish it. It's a big part of it. So you want to describe it in detail and have a clear plan idea of how you're going to reach your goal. This tends to be an area where people struggle. And what it shows when you struggle is that you don't fully understand what it is you're trying to do. Okay. And that's why it's important. If you say keep elbow turned correctly and you don't really know how to do that, then it's unlikely you're going to be able to accomplish it. So keep elbow turned correctly. An exam, and once again, this is where you just not might need more education, you might need more help. So before each shot, turn elbow so the bumpy part, the medial epicondyle, is pointed down. As I raise the bow, concentrate on keeping the elbow turned correctly. So that is kind of coaching instruction on how you will accomplish this. I'm going to beginning of the shot, turn my arm down. And then as I raise it, I'm going to concentrate on keeping that elbow turned correctly. That's how we take a vague goal, like keep the elbow turned correctly, into an actual series of events, the actions. I'm going to turn my elbow, action. As I raise the bow, I'm going to concentrate. Okay. Stand up straight. We're going to describe it. Feet hip width apart, knees over ankles, hips over knees. I'm going to keep my spine nice and straight. I'm going to make sure I'm straight before the shot. So make sure is our action, and concentrate on remaining straight as I pull back. After the shot, I'll check to see that I'm still standing up straight. So that's how we're going to check it. Okay. What does it look like for the mental goals? Stay relaxed and have fun. So I'm going to remind myself, so that's the action, that it doesn't matter where the arrow lands, only that I work on my form. I'm going to look around and remind myself this is just for fun. So that's like the action. So I'm not just going to stay relaxed and have fun and then just hope it happens. I'm going to have things I'm going to do. Like I'm going to have an internal mantra that I repeat to myself. I'm going to oh, yeah, if I start to get upset, sorry, I missed that line. Remind myself that it doesn't matter where the arrows land, only that I work on my form. If I start to get upset, then I will take a deep, slow breath, stand up straight, and smile. Look around and remind myself that this is just for fun. So I have like an action plan. If I start to get frustrated, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a deep, slow breath. Deep, slow breath is a verb. I'm going to stand up straight and I'm going to smile. I'm going to look around and remind myself this is just for fun. Like it's just archery. We're just shooting a bow. No one's getting hurt. There's no reason to be miserable during this process. And as students, if you don't shoot someone and you do your assignments, you're passing the class. So like we don't have to worry about this. Okay. Another example would be focus on one shot at a time. Before each shot, think through each step. Think of this one arrow, and after the shot, take a deep breath and move on to the next. Okay. So that would be an example of how to take sort of these vague goals and expand them. Make sure you understand what I am doing and how I am going to accomplish it. Okay. So now we have our specific, We have our action oriented from our acronym. Now we're going to make it measurable and realistic. Okay. So the reason why we recommend that you have like a scale or percent is because otherwise people default to all or nothing. I will have a good attitude all day. Eh, if it's something you're struggling with, doesn't that seem unrealistic? So we recommend doing on a scale of 1 to 10, um, or percentages. So percentages tend to be better for something that you either do or don't do, and a scale of 1 to 10 is more of like something that has a range. So this is probably the hardest step for people to judge before they do goal setting because they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I guess I normally stay at an attitude of like a 5, so I wanna do an 8." And you don't really know because you haven't really tried. Or, "I don't think I turn my elbow, I hit my elbow that often, so I think 70% of the time is fine." You don't really know. You wanna try to make a goal that is, according to the research, moderately difficult. I know that's very subjective, especially before you've done this. And just to be clear, if you don't reach your goal, you're not gonna fail this assignment. The assignment is not about failing or achieving the goal, it's about learning how to write goals, and it's inevitable that you will at times not reach your goals, because it's a learning process. It's just as much a skill as shooting archery. So on a scale, so to show how these work, you might say if it's a form goal, like one of the form goals we said already, we might say, I want to keep my elbow turned correctly 70% of the time. Okay. If you do a scale goal, let's take one of the mental goals. You might say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best attitude I have, I want to try to maintain an attitude of a 7 or higher all day. Okay. And then time, you just need to have a time for this practice session, for this next week, whatever, okay? It for this particular assignment is for the class time. It's for this practice period. Okay. So that is making the goal. After the class, at the end of class, we'll stop early and we'll fill out the reflective cycle. You want to carefully read each question and answer the question exactly according to what is being asked. So try to state the positive. And the reason why that's important is that um, one of the questions, so the reflective cycle, I'll read it for those of you who don't have it in front of you. Um, is the reflective cycle is the first one is what happened today? Did you reach your goal? Second question is what is great about today? A lot of people will start, that's where they start qualifying. I had a better time even though I missed a bunch. I did this, but I still wasn't very good. Like that's where we go. That's not what the question's asking. That's a different question. So right now, what was great? It was sunny out. I had a nice time with my friends. I enjoyed the goal setting exercise. I think I shot a little bit better. I met my goal. I turned my arm correctly. Okay. The next question is, what could I have done better? Okay. That's where you can say things like, I don't really care about outcomes, so I wouldn't encourage you to say things like I shot better or I had a higher score so much as I was able to accomplish my goal. I was able to improve my form. I had a really nice time. I mean, we can put score in there because technically that is like something that went well, but we just want to make sure it doesn't get too score focused. What did I learn and how will I incorporate this in the future? So that's something like you might say, I learned that when I worked on my attitude, I not only enjoyed the time more, but I actually shot better as well. I found that, I mean, sometimes it's unconnected. I've had people who say things like, I've, I discovered that if I wore a hat, I wasn't squinting and I could hit the target better, whatever. One thing I would like to be able to do, and I will achieve that by, and it's sort of a general, let's move forward. What is my next goal? I would like to be able to continue to keep my elbow turned, continue to stand up straight. Um, I would like to improve my release, things like that. And I will achieve that by talking with the teacher and getting a better idea of some drills that I can do, whatever. So, um, that's sort of running through how to do this. Remember that goal setting is a skill, and like all skills must be practiced and worked on in order to improve. And then for those of you who can't see it, it says at the all information regarding published studies is from the Foundations of Sport and Exercise Psychology, second edition by Weinberg, Robert S. and Gould. Daniel. Oh, I can't read that. By Robert Weinstein and Daniel Gould. Sorry, it was written really small and I was trying to recite it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. So that would be my presentation. I would give that to students and I would have them go and do that. That was for a class assignment. It was worth 6 points. I would take a point off for every time they used don't, won't, couldn't. They had score outcome stuff and they were allowed to redo the assignment as many times as they needed to get all of the points, because my goal was just that they did the assignment correctly, not that they it wasn't a pop quiz. And they were allowed to bring it over to me and ask me, and I'd say, cross that out, put this instead. And that's how I taught it. Now, it has been 11 years since I taught it that way, and I do have some additional notes for people who want to go this into ongoing practice. Some students, just to be aware, are not motivated by goals. They just don't have a close relationship with them. It's just not how their brain works. And that might be a case where you need to modify this. You might need to, some students automatically create goals in their minds. Most people who do that do tend to go toward outcome goals. So finding a way to both support that motivation aspect and separate it from practice, because it really doesn't, as my college professor would say, if it was just about who wanted it more, that's Disney movie thinking. That's not real life thinking. Sometimes this athlete who wants it more doesn't win. It has a lot more to do with preparation and practice. That wanting it a lot should lead them towards practice, towards hard work, but it doesn't always result in winning, unfortunately. Another thing to keep in mind is, this is a big phrase for me in recent years, which is the perfect plan you will never the perfect plan you will never implement is always inferior to the imperfect plan you will implement. And what that means is, I just showed you the research says this is the best way to do goal setting. If you or your student will never do it that way, then figure out what you will. Figure out the plan you will actually implement. If you will not fill out this whole big thing, but you will say it verbally at the beginning and end of practice, do it that way. If it's a matter of texting someone, if it's a matter of doodling it on a Post-it, if it's whatever will actually get you to implement the helpful parts of this exercise, it's always superior. Always do that over the perfect plan that every single practice, every single time you sit down to make goals, you feel totally overwhelmed. My yearly goals, I love goal setting, but my yearly goals for my author business are on a Post-it. They're on a Post-it. They're kind of roughly broken down. I change them a lot. I use that to make my quarterly goals, my weekly goals. Now, my daily goals, my weekly goals tend to be written down on Post-its next to my computer that I cross off. It's a little bit more, but I need to be able to move it. On contrast, I have friends who every single week create a graphic of all of their goals for the week with check boxes. It's the first thing she does on Monday morning. And I'm just like, that's more work. I'd rather just do the things. But for her, that's how she functions. So you're going to have clients, or yourself. Some of you are going to want to have journals with printouts, and you're going to want to fill out the whole thing every time. And other people are going to have to say, what parts of this can I do, or how can I fulfill the spirit of this assignment in a way that's really helpful to me? What parts will I do? What is just going to be extra paperwork that drags me down? I do encourage that if we're going to do goal setting, you make it really clear what you are trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish? Do you really fully understand what is happening? This is what happens with a lot of my athletes when I was first training them, was that they knew that they didn't for instance, with their hand to come way off their face, to pluck the string after the release. But the problem was, because they were beginning athletes, they didn't understand how to do that and what a correct release did look like. And so that was my job as a coach. If you don't have a coach, then that might be research, that might be looking at different athletes, that might be talking to people at your range and just being Googling asking me, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm sure Teresa and I would love to discuss that. But that idea of like sometimes it's literally a gap in your knowledge and no amount of wanting it is going to help. So make sure it's really clear that you understand what you want, the drills to get there, what you're aiming for, all of that. So that's a really important part of goal setting. And I do really encourage you to have some form of a reflective cycle. It can be as simple as when I'm working on a form thing, I'll work on it for like a half an hour. I'll do my whole shooting. Um, I'll do a scoring round because scoring round kind of shows all the weakness. And then I'll like snap a couple videos and I'll look and I'll say, nope, that is not what I thought I was doing. And then I'll refine it. And for me, a lot of times just the video check-ins are a really helpful part for form working on. And I try really hard that when something works that I put it somewhere. I put like, okay, thinking about quick hands. It when I think quick hands, I see a change in my form, which is moving me in the direction I want. Or I think about how the form master felt. If you haven't used a form master, it connects to your elbow and to the string. And when you let go with your fingers, if you're weak in the elbow, you kind of collapse in. And I can remember because I've used one before, how it felt. And so sometimes just reminding my body goes, got it. I know what you mean. Same with attitude, mental stuff, which I'm always working on. Same thing. How did that feel? What did that mean? I put notes on my scorecards. Um, Teresa and I also often do check-ins, and I'll just be like, "Hey, I'm heading out to the shop to do this. I'm working on this today," and then I'll do a little check-in afterwards. I'm a big verbal processor, so that's really helpful to me. So but you can see, like, I haven't filled out one of these goal setting things in a long time, but I did for a long, long time. So now I do a lot of this stuff instinctively. That really worked. That is an area that needs improvement. This informs my next practice session because I want to continue to work on this. Um, and so that is one of the big things that I didn't press as not enough when I was teaching. Um, and I would now is this idea of don't let the perfect get in the way of the work. Like if you are not someone wired to do all of these steps, instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, see if you can grab a couple of key parts and integrate it in a way that you're actually going to use, like find a way to use these tools. So that is my little speech on goal setting. I have a feeling that I talked really quickly because I used to when I taught because I had such a limited amount of time. Literally, it was very short. And I tended to lose their attention if I drifted for even a second. So I apologize if that's too fast. If you have any questions about goal setting, I love all this stuff. And this is my goal with this podcast. I have several, I pulled up all of my old research. I'm going to go look at some more recent research. Got some textbooks and stuff, and I want to start diving back into the literature and really getting excited about different sports psych concepts that I can share with people and maybe push myself to think about what does this mean for an athlete today, a new athlete, an experienced athlete, someone with a coach that they can work with, someone who doesn't have a coach. Not all of us have. I no longer have a coach. I have Teresa, who's amazing, but I am doing most of my work solo now. And challenging myself to kind of do more, think more. Is there stuff I've left behind? So thank you for joining just me today. And in my recording closet, if you're on YouTube, you can see that I'm quite literally recording in a closet. I have clothes behind me, but it's where I record all of my audio stuff. And so it was easier to do it in here today. So thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you on the next Slow Archery podcast. Bye.